Hey everyone, I'm Adam Maker and welcome back. I don't have a segue into what we're talking about today, but here it goes. Pet is a film from 2016 and I first learned about it through an app I had on my old phone. I thought it looked intriguing, so I clicked on the poster, read the synopsis, and then I tried to never think about it again. As you can see, I have failed. So, what is Pet? To be honest, before I watched the movie, the things I knew about it were actually all wrong. Whatever I thought the movie was about, I would later learn that I was just thinking about Split, which, if you were wondering, is a better movie, which I don't think is much of a surprise. This film was written by Jeremy Slater, who wrote The Umbrella Academy, a show that I haven't watched. He has also written such classics as Fantastic and the live-action Death Note movie. I'm utterly terrified now. He's also the creator of the Exorcist TV show. I didn't even know there was an Exorcist TV show. What do you know? There it is. Well, that's the guy who wrote it. The guy who directed it has pretty much only directed this. The film stars Dominic Monaghan. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this, but here she is. And Jeanette McCurdy, for some reason. Now that we have some of the background details, let's dive into this. On the surface, I pegged Pet to be a fairly generic horror flick, where a psychotic man who loved a woman kidnaps her because she didn't love him back. And for the first 45 or so minutes, that's what the movie is building, before the film then diverts your expectations of what it is. So yeah, Seth is an introverted recluse who does easily fall for Holly, a girl who doesn't like him back, and yes, he does stalk her, but that's actually not why he kidnaps her. As the film is building towards him kidnapping Holly, we are made to assume that we know everything about Seth and Holly. Seth is, as I said, a reclusive, socially awkward loner who works at a dog shelter, and Holly is a more outgoing person who lives with her roommate Claire and has relationship drama. Plus, she's a waitress who wants to be a writer. This setup has been in many movies and has been done to near death, but the film takes a different twist to this idea. While yes, Seth does stalk her and is just overall a weird guy who falls for Holly, that, as I said, isn't why he kidnaps her. When Seth follows her to a bar, they get into an altercation and Holly ends up hitting Seth with her bag and her diary falls out of it. When Seth leaves the bar, he finds it and takes it with him. We then see a montage of him reading it and then deciding to build a cage in the basement of the dog shelter where he works. Then he of course kidnaps her, and we are led to believe that this is all because he loves her and wants to be with her by any means necessary. But the language he uses when he's talking to her gives us a hint as to why he actually kidnapped her. That is when we learn the twist. So I know, I've mentioned it a couple times that what we are led to believe early in the movie is wrong. It's revealed that Seth actually kidnapped Holly because she's actually a murderer and wrote what is essentially a confession to all of them in her diary. He also saw her committing the murders while he was stalking her. This is why he decides to kidnap her and lock her away. So yes, Seth is crazy and does love her, but he's actually trying to do good by locking her up so she can't hurt anyone. Unfortunately for Seth, however, Holly is a manipulator and a serial killer who doesn't just kill, but she enjoys doing it. It's revealed that her murderous tendencies actually started when she killed her friend Claire because she was sleeping with her boyfriend. Holly caused an accident while driving and they both lived until Holly stabbed Claire in the eye with a shard of glass. So that scene where Holly is in her apartment talking to Claire, that was just a hallucination from what I'm going to assume is Holly's guilt. That part isn't ever explained, but that's what I'm going to assume. That also explains why Holly is hallucinating Claire when she's locked in this cage. This movie actually changes the formula for kidnapping movies by making it so that the person doing the kidnapping is almost right. I mean, he's still crazy, and he should have just went to the police instead, but he's trying his best. And like I said, Holly is a manipulator, and despite being the one locked in a cage, is able to manipulate Seth to the point where he kills Nate, the security guard that Seth is kind of friends with. Nate finds Holly in the cage, and then Seth kills him. And after that, she even tells him how to dispose of the body, which involves Seth feeding parts of him to the dogs. Yeah, the scene is as gross as it sounds. But the twist creates so many new layers to what's happening. The film leads you to think it's just a run-of-the-mill kidnapping movie, only to slap you in the face with this twist. A twist that definitely saves the movie to the point where I can almost recommend this. Almost. So unfortunately for this movie is that everything I more or less just praised happens in the last 45 or so minutes. This film is 94 minutes long, which, don't get me wrong, is a respectable length for any movie. However, this movie takes a while to get going. It takes probably 40 to 45 minutes for Seth to even kidnap Holly. So before that, it's just scenes with awkward dialogue and stilted acting from pretty much everyone, even the guy playing Seth, who I will admit can usually act. He was in Lord of the Rings for God's sake, but for whatever reason, his performance in the first half just leaves a lot to be desired. He does, though, get better as the film progresses, and the girl playing Holly is actually doing a great job. She's giving a genuinely good performance. She really hasn't done a whole lot of work in film besides this. She was in Black Swan, a film that I haven't seen, and she was also on Orphan Black, something else that I haven't seen, but she was still great here, so I want to applaud her for that. But yeah, the film is definitely a film of two halves, with the first being a poorly acted drag to get through, and the second being a compelling and twisted love story between two people that are pretty terrible, with the one who did the kidnapping somehow being the lesser of the two. However, with both characters being revealed to be terrible people, you can't root for anyone. You can't root for Seth because he kidnapped a woman and locked her in a cage in an animal shelter basement, and you can't root for Holly because she's a murderer. Killing her best friend for sleeping with her boyfriend? Completely understandable. But all of the other killings? Not so much. So that leaves the question, who am I supposed to be rooting for here? Overall, I would say this movie is actually pretty good. This is a film that on the surface I wasn't really going to give a chance. I mean, why should I? It's not that clever of a concept. But part of me thinks that's what the movie wanted. Everything I got from the synopsis to the posters made me believe I was getting an uninspired kidnapping movie, but it wasn't. It diverted my expectations in a good way. Unfortunately though, the film has a number of flaws that are either hard to overlook or I just can't overlook. With a plethora of bad performances and the snail pace that is the first 45 minutes, I don't really know how I feel about the movie. It's not a run-of-the-mill film like I thought it was going to be, but as I said, the film still has bad performances, the dialogue is very weak at points, and also, I didn't mention it before, but the direction and cinematography are also very uninspired. It's a very plain-looking movie. The twist, though, and Holly's performance are what save this movie from being a complete bust. So I don't know if I can fully recommend this movie. If only 50% of a movie is good, no matter how engaging it is, it still doesn't make up for the other 50% I had to sit through to get to it. But that's up to you. But because of all that, I can't give this movie anything higher than a 6 out of 10.